Night vision cameras, we use those. Of course, they're only good at night. They're only good in certain circumstances. We use covert cameras, which they can be built into things, like built into a key ring or coffee cup or sunglasses. But once again, that's for close-to-close filming. If you're in a restaurant and you didn't want to be seen filming, you put your coffee cup facing the table next to you.
The moment an angry, scorned lover is driven to exact revenge. Gwendolyn Piniaha had just caught her boyfriend in a car with another woman. He tried to calm her down. Instead, she drove straight over him.
Careers in television shows have been built around catching cheaters.
There's as many naughty girls as naughty boys, let's put it that way.
Welcome to I Spy. I'm crime reporter Natalie O'Brien, and this 8-part podcast is a glimpse into the mysterious and often dangerous world of private eyes.
He pulled a gun on me and I had to defend myself.
Many people wonder what it would be like to be a famous private investigator like Sherlock Holmes, Magnum P.I. or Agatha Christie's legendary Miss Marple, solving one exciting case after another.
And no one's ever picked me for being a private investigator. I just look like a grandmother, out and about, doing some shopping.
The men and women in this podcast are licensed to spy, and you will hear them revealing their most fascinating and hair-raising cases.
Within seconds of meeting him, I could instantly see how he was a successful serial killer.
Using their powers of observation, surveillance and disguise, these guns for hire deal with everything from corruption, adultery and violence as they solve crimes, catch cheats and even rescue children.
So I'd have to tell my office, tell my partner, this is what I'm doing today or tonight. I'm going here, here, here and here. If you don't hear from me by 10 o'clock, avenge my death, I used to jokingly say.
Top of the list of fascinating subjects to discuss with a private eye is catching a cheetah. And that's when I found David King from the aptly named Lipstick Investigations.
You're a very nosy fellow, kitty cat, huh? You know what happens to nosy fellows? Huh? No? Wanna guess? Huh? No? Okay. They lose their noses.
You could say David King is nosy in a good way. He's been a successful private investigator for decades. He has solved dozens of mysteries, found countless missing persons, and even tracked a drug-dealing Biki gang. And he knows a sticky situation when he sees one.
And it was a big deal. It was serious stuff. And I said, look, these are serious people, you know. This guy got kidnapped and tortured, you know.
But it is cheating that has become his signature business. Infidelity is considered the ultimate betrayal, and a wronged partner can be driven by relentless compulsion to find out if their suspicions are true. One woman needed to know so badly she spent 4 years and $500,000 documenting the truth. But we will get to her story later.
I want to get him followed. Bang, you can knock it on the head exactly that day. What is he doing on Valentine's Day that he can't do with me?
Cheating is a popular pastime. And perhaps not surprisingly, the busiest day of the year is Valentine's Day. It's a day for love, lovers, and as we are finding out, for cheating.
If you think your Valentine's Day was bad, remember it could be worse. How about getting busted cheating on television?
Yep, that's bottom. Valentine's Day is one of the busiest days of the year.
And the reason why is because it's a targeted day, right? When somebody's cheating, you don't know what day they're going to cheat, right? What days you do it? Oh, I don't know. Well, we charge you by the hour, so you got to give me an idea of the hours you want to do. Whereas Valentine's Day, it's a targeted day. You know what's going to happen. He said he's busy on Valentine's Day.
Infidelity is only possible with secrets and lies. Because of that, cheaters are already on their guard, watchful for anyone who might recognise them. And for that reason, clandestine Valentine's Day trysts usually happen behind closed doors. But that doesn't deter David. He knows the cheaters have to come outside sometime.
It's more the romantic stuff, which is cliche Valentine's Day. It'll be a dinner and that sort of stuff, and they might, disappear to a hotel or a car park afterwards. But it's nearly always a dinner, which is good for us because we can always cater to that. They don't just disappear behind a closed door. Oh, well, what's he doing there? I don't know. But out and about, spending a bit of money, walking in there with a bunch of flowers, all that's good intelligence to show a client of what did happen on the day.
And if they're not having dinner with you and they're having dinner with somebody else on Valentine's Day, that is a big sign, isn't it?
I think so. And when the client calls, a potential client calls and said, "Do you think that's suspicious?" And I say, "Well, I do. You know, my partner makes me do stuff on Valentine's Day. I've never get away with it." And so she's used to her Valentine's Day being me being on the phone the entire night, but at least we're out to dinner together. Cheating aspect of private investigation is about the hardest because they know they're cheating, and so they're aware. They might be looking over their shoulder. They're, I'm doing something wrong. Who's that guy and all that sort of stuff. So they're normally a bit more aware. Over time, they tend to get a bit more blasé about things because they haven't seen us beforehand. They haven't been followed beforehand. But it's one of those things that you are doing something wrong. So it's harder to follow. It's like following criminals. They know they're doing something wrong. They're expecting the police on them, so they act accordingly. And that's the issue that we have with the infidelity market is that, they expect to be followed, but it blows me away sometimes how blasé some people are about it and, how easy they make it.
It's like hiding in plain sight.
Yes.
Although I guess that they would be worried that people that know them might see them out together. And
that's of course true. But a lot will go to a different area. Example, I remember having this job in a Sydney suburb, and the client was over in Hong Kong, and her husband lived in the apartment, and the apartment above, their goddaughter. And she was sure her husband was an affair with a goddaughter. And it sounded a bit far-fetched to me. And she was gone for 3 weeks. We did 3 weeks surveillance, and all he ever did was go to work. All right. She rings me the day before she's coming back and said, "Have you got anything?" I said, "He hasn't done anything wrong. I don't know whether we should do this last day." She said, "No, let's do it. We've done this many. Let's do it." That day, I did this job myself, so I remember it well. That day, she's left. The goddaughter's left on foot. I thought, okay, she's left on foot. Well, she's not my target. The husband was. Anyway, 5 minutes later, he left and jumped in his car and drove around the corner, and she was waiting. So she jumped in the car, and they drove all the way from this inner Sydney suburb to an outer Sydney suburb where they went and had lunch and did some second-hand car shopping and things like that, all hand in hand. So we got the result on the very last day available on what I thought was a fast-fetched job, but it was real.
Studies have shown 1 in 5 spouses cheat.
A client comes to us and says, "Right, I'm suspicious," so they have a reason to be suspicious. I quote 80% will get a result. I reckon it would be higher, but some people don't have enough money to keep going. And then sometimes there's a timing issue, right? You might do all month for July and then they're good. And then not knowing that the potential girlfriend has been away that month. So you've wasted that month not knowing what was going on. Husband did nothing wrong, right? And then in August, they catch up. But they only did July. So we can't just keep going unless they pay us to, of course, because we're a business. So I think the percentages would be higher. And then there are people that keep going and going and going, hoping to get a result.
When you say people come back time and time again, often looking for something or trying to prove it, is that the client that spent $500,000, and was that a cheating case?
It was a cheating case. We got fairly good evidence fairly quickly. This $500,000 was over 4 years, right? So we got fairly good evidence. When I say fairly good, it's very good evidence within a few months. I think she just got addicted to the information side of it, and she's paying the bill. So, we'll keep going out there. Most people get what they need, and that's the end of it, right? But there are the ones that probably spend more, the ones that it's not happening the way they thought it would. Either there's no infidelity happening, but they're convinced it is, or the timing is just bad. As I was saying earlier, if they just pick the wrong days, then we've got to keep trying, and we'll try as much as they want to.
And the $500,000 lady, did she get what she wanted in the end?
Well, she got it within 3 months, but 4 years later, 3.5 years later, she was still going. So who knows what she wanted out of that, I would assume she told us she wanted this, we got that, and then she just kept going. It was I was going to say unfortunate, it was probably fortunate. Their office was based right opposite ours, and she worked in the office with this person. So she'd say, right, he's leaving, can you get downstairs? So we just drop everything and run downstairs, get him to point A, then call some surveillance agents in, and that's why it went so long, I think, because she had that beck and call that we could just pretty much drop everything, be there within a minute, beat him down in the lift, and see what happened from there. There's a lot of hours in that which didn't give any results, but I mean, we charge by the hour, so we don't care. We'll take that, thank you.
And just talking about charging by the hour, I think you've said it's like the cost of a plumber?
Yeah, well, it's cost of a plumber per hourly rate, but how many hours? And this is it. Surveillance normally goes longer than a plumber. I'm sure there's $5,000 plumbing jobs, but we just charge by the hour. We charge $125 an hour, right? A lot of guys are cheaper, but we believe our product's worth what we charge, and we have a 4-hour minimum. So in theory, you could spend $500 and get all your answers. That's it. That's cheap, all right? But if you keep coming back and back and back and back and back and back and back, that's going to get up there. Whereas a plumber, they've got a fixed job really at the end of the day. While they might not know exactly how many hours it's going to take, you're going to spend a few hundred or a few thousand with them. I don't think there's going to be too many plumbing jobs that are $500,000.
By the time a private investigator like David is called in, there is already a strong suspicion that something is not right. David says he will always back a woman's intuition. They are usually right.
They don't just call us for no reason, right? So, in fact, we're getting close to a last resort. They've already done, nowadays with technology the way it is, they're all over the internet, they're checking phones, looking at emails, text messages, that sort of thing, friends, social media type thing. So getting their clues from other places. And, clients can, put a recorder behind a couch and things like that they're gathering their own evidence, and it's only when they get stuck that we become involved. There's not too many people that just go, bang, I'm getting a private investigator.
Yeah, that's true. And is that something that you have suggested to people, or they've already done it before they come to you?
They've normally done it first because that's where they've got their information from. As I say, there's not too many that just go willy-nilly, I'm going to get him checked out. All right? They've got to have a clue come from somewhere as to why they're suspicious. There's a lot of signs of infidelity, the classic old, wearing nice clothes, she bought new underwear, he's got new aftershave that he never wears at any other time. Little things like that can get people suspicious, but they normally still do some digging from there. Just because she's got a different cologne on doesn't make them pick up the phone and give me a call.
When you talk about cheating, it is the question on everyone's lips. Is it true more men than women cheat? The answer might surprise you.
Everybody asks me this question, and I've got to say it's 50-50. There might be times where we've got 10 jobs on and 9 of them are women chasing husbands, but it can go the other way. So I think overall, over a period of years, it's got to be very close to half-half.
So how do you catch a cheater?
Look, it varies from situation to situation. Every situation is different. This guy put himself out there publicly. I mean, he'd do his fornicating, for want of a better word, in the car and, take his girlfriend out for walks and sit down there having a glass of wine and everything outside. So it was very easy to do that one. We've just got to track him from, his workplace or wherever. And eventually it gets to the stage where we start to know the routine so well that we'll start following the female in this case because she was easier to follow. So we just target her. She ends up there. Because they put themselves out in the open, it makes it quite easy. It's jobs where it's happening behind closed doors. All we can do then is really put them in that spot. We can't tell what they're doing. We don't have those see-through glasses that see through walls.
That's true. And you did say before, surveillance is a big part of it. Does that involve, the things we see in the movies, crawling through long grass, hiding behind a tree?
Well, it can do. It depends, once again, on the circumstances. We've certainly been hiding in long grass and hiding up trees, we have. It doesn't happen every day. I've been in it a long time. And 20 years ago, so I put the changing point is pretty much 9/11. When that happened, everybody was just so much more aware of everybody hanging around or doing things. Before then, a life as a surveillance investigator was a lot easier. People didn't tend to pay so much attention to what was going on around them. But all that happened, and, I'm sure it still does, but it depends on what the actual aspect of each particular job is.
Do you get to wear disguises a lot? Is that something that you utilise?
Well, disguises, I guess it is. I mean, most agents, they've got something in their car. They've got a spare box of stuff, or change of clothes, and all that sort of stuff. You've got to have a jacket you can turn inside out to change its appearance. You put a cap in your pocket, which you'll put on and off, that sort of stuff. So it's not so much disguises, it's just changing your appearance. I do remember one agent, he's retired now. He was a short, bald fellow, and he'd just go about his job normally, and then if he's say you're doing a job on public transport, or you're on a bus, off the bus, on a train, and so on and so forth, you're doing the same thing as a target. So it's like you've got to change your appearance. He had this cap that he'd sewn hair in around the edges, and it was like black hair and everything. So he looked like a bit like Dickie Nee. But he put that cap on, he looked 20 years younger, and you would not have recognised him. So it really worked well. It looked silly, and it was really cliche, but it really worked.
Seeing evidence that your partner has been cheating can be a shock, even if you already suspected it was true. Wronged partners handle the situation in different ways. One of David's emotional clients ended up wielding an axe.
A photograph has emerged of a woman wielding a baseball bat believed to have been used in a suspected revenge attack. The $400,000 vehicle was also spray painted with words including cheetah and other profanities.
We do see that sort of retribution from time to time, but you've got to remember, when a private investigator hands over his results, it's up to the client to deal with that, and what they do next is up to them. And we don't often get involved because our job's done. It gets handed on to the lawyers or to their family or whatever it may be. So it's only time to time that we come up with something like that. The same thing happened to me with regards to the axe to the Range Rover. I had a similar thing once. A client rang me after the job and she said, "Can you hear that banging in the background?" Which I could. And she said, "That's a hatchet going into my husband's Monaro." So, it has happened literally to me, but I don't get it all the time. It's not that common.
You must have been quite shocked to hear that.
It gave me a little chuckle because I do remember that particular job. He was a piece of work, really, and he was really taking advantage of it. So it was really nice to get the results we did for her. And, normally I wouldn't condone that sort of activity, but it was one of those jobs where he probably deserved it.
Is that because it had been going on a long time, or?
Yeah, and he really had the wool pulled over her eyes, and it's one of those relationships that probably shouldn't have been together. But this was enough for her. The evidence was enough for her to move on after that point, and that's what they need half the time. Half the time they already know that it's happening, but a partner will say, "You're crazy. I'm not doing anything," and what can you do to that? You either walk or you believe them. Okay, well, how do I go about doing something about it? And that's where a private investigator can come into it.
Can I ask you, what are some of the tactics and things that you use? Cameras, long lenses, night vision?
Well, yeah, it depends on the situation once again, right? Anytime I've done some media work and they want to do some pictures of me, they want to take me a picture of me up on a roof with a long lens camera, right? And then if my target left, well, I'm too far away. I can't follow my target. So that's not that common. There will be some situations where that will be the case. Generally, though, it's close-up following. You've got to be fairly close so you don't lose them, particularly in a car. An orange light and a car in between you, job's over. So you do have to follow closer than you would like to. We rely on the person not looking. But to gather the evidence, it is because most of evidence is visual, right? So, okay, what's a visual recording medium? Anything from video cameras, which are almost getting a bit old-fashioned, to quality of mobile phones nowadays. Mobile phone does almost as good job. There's a late Samsung, which has got a 20 times optical lens. Most of the video cameras don't have 20 times optical, right? And video cameras are getting harder and harder to source. Night vision cameras, we use those. Of course, they're only good at night. They're only good in certain circumstances. We use covert cameras, which they can be built into things, like built into a key ring or coffee cup or sunglasses. But once again, that's for close-to-close filming. If you're in a restaurant and you didn't want to be seen filming, you put your coffee cup facing the table next to you, which is where they're sitting there and doing their canoodling or their talking or whatever. So that equipment is all used, yes it is, but we don't do anything with sound. In fact, we've got to edit all the sound out. So, it's just one of the cons of what we've got to do. But because our evidence is visual, any visual recording medium will take it. Drones, not so much, but have done. I've got people that have got the car camera is just already inserted in the car, and they'll be following somebody and they'll stop at a set of lights and lean over and have a kiss. Very hard to know that was going to happen, but their car cameras picked it up. So I'll get a little quick bit of evidence come through in only a 3-second clip, obviously from a car camera that's got half a result for us just because they had it installed.
Many people already have a suspicion something is wrong by the time they call a private investigator, but there are some who don't see it coming. If you're not looking for signs, maybe you missed something.
A good example, I had a job I remember well, because I ended up building up a friendship with the client. The client was the sister. The client was the sister. She was sure her sister's husband was having an affair. The sister didn't see it, but the client, so her sister, our client saw it. She said, right, this is where he lives, this is where he works. I don't want to tell my sister, just go and do it. And within 3 days, we were able to get him to his boss's place, and we got good evidence of him coming out of her place, and they had a kiss on the lips on the way out, which is normally enough, certainly enough for her. And the sister gave it to the wife, and she was defoed. She couldn't believe it, so she didn't see it coming. She didn't see any of these signs, whereas the sister did. So I think if you're not looking for them or you don't know the possibility, you might not pick it up. But then we won't hear from them because they don't know. And so not every act of infidelity is solved by using a private investigator. People don't always pick it up.
Cheating investigations don't always turn out the way you would expect. When I asked David about his favourite case, one came to mind, a case which spanned 2 continents and had a surprise, happy ending.
Yeah, I've got a couple. Well, the happiest one for me was a client spent $500,000, so that was the best one for me, right? But as far as good results, mainly they're the Find My Family type scenario. It's not so much the infidelity stuff. It's still relationships. You've got people trying to reunite themselves with people that either didn't know they existed or that sort of thing. I do remember that's what I find the most fulfilling in this industry, is being able to do that. And I've picked up it being a bit of a specialty, a side specialty at the moment. I've done a bit of media over it, and media creates more interest in it, and you get more work on it. So I'm constantly doing those sort of things, and it's a good feeling in a fairly dodgy business to be able to get results like that. But as far as a result, happiest result, it's probably 20 years ago. One of my agents, we had this job where the client was in America. His girlfriend had come to Australia for a wedding, right? And she was staying in a hotel in Sydney, and then went from the hotel to her girlfriend's place in the eastern suburbs. And he was just a bit worried, what's she doing? And so he asked us to, just keep our eye on her to see what was going on. And everything seemed above board. 2 days later, he rings me and says, she said she's going to Lindeman Island. Hayman Island it was. She said she's going to Hayman Island for the wedding or for the honeymoon or whatever, and there's a group of people going. And what's it going to take to go to Hayman Island? I said, I can quickly make sure that there's availability. He gave me the dates and everything. Make sure there's availability, and we can send somebody. You've got to pay for all that, of course. I'm going to have to send an agent over on a daily rate. You've got to wear all the costs. He was quite a successful businessman in America, so money wasn't his issue. He said, no, let's do it. And I had a girl sitting in my office who just brought in some videotape back in the videotape days. That's how long ago that is. And I still had it on the phone. I said, Michelle, do you want to go to Hayman Island? And she goes, when? I said, tomorrow, I think. And she goes, yeah, I'll just see if I can get rid of my daughter. And so she's jumped on the phone and got a friend to look after her daughter. It took her 2 minutes to organise that. And she said, yep, I can go. So I could tell the client, I've got someone that can go to Hayman Island tomorrow. And as it turned out, she got on the same plane as the girlfriend and the wedding party. And when they got to the island, they were all couples except for the girlfriend and my agent. So they actually teamed up as friends on the trip because it was just the 2 single girls. And they had a lot of chats, deep and meaningful chats and everything like that. And Michelle came back with good information saying, look, all she talked about the client was all good things and everything like that. She was very happy with the way things were, and also happy that she let him come to Australia just for this. And she had nothing but good things to say. So I reported that back to the client, and he was very happy. He rang me back the week after and said, she came home. I just wanted to say to you, I proposed to her as soon as she got home. So that was enough for him to, the peace of mind. She's on the other side of the world. Now's a chance to play up. She didn't do anything wrong. Not only that, she told, someone she didn't know how she felt about me, and it just made me feel as comfortable as I could ever be. So that's probably the happiest story to come from a surveillance-based or a potential cheating-based thing. It could have gone either way, and it went the positive way.
Not all cheating investigations have a sad or painful result. An unlikely story of a philandering yachty who had been sailing around the world turned out to be a heartwarming family reunion for sisters from opposite sides of the globe who had never met.
It was a girl from overseas, like Jamaica. Her mother got pregnant by an Australian yachty who was just sailing around the world on his own. He was a bit of a philanderer, a well-known philanderer apparently, and got this woman pregnant. This is the result. She came looking for him, I think she was early 30s, and I was able to find him, but I couldn't make contact with him. So I literally, last step, and I hate doing this, I had to literally went around and knocked on the door, and a woman answered, and I said I was looking for Mr. Smith, and she said, "Oh no, he died 10 years ago. What's this about?" And I said, I was caught between a rock and a hard place. Now, what do I do? And this was obviously his wife. And I said, "Oh look," and she'd had a few drinks. I mean, it was late in the afternoon, so I was like, you can't blame her for having a couple of drinks at home. And I said, "Look, is there someone else I can talk to? Here's my business card. Just get them to call me." 5 minutes later, I barely left the building, and I get a call from her daughter, and said, "What's this all about?" I said, we're already committed now, so I normally like to be a bit more discreet. We're already committed. And I said, "Well, I explained the story. I've got this client overseas who believes that your father is her father, and this girl's gone, and she's named her. Is that?" And named the girl. And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Oh my God, we've been looking for her all our lives. We knew about her, we just didn't know how to find her." So it was one of those great endings. And in fact, it was about 2 months later, I get a call from the sister, so not the client, but from the sister, said, "She's coming over. Can you meet us for a cup of coffee?" And I did. I met them for a cup of coffee. I mean, I teared up. It was just one of those fantastic things that they'd both been looking all their lives. And I'm even surprised the Sydney daughter even had a clue that this other daughter existed, because while he was a philanderer, he was obviously an honest philanderer, and put it out there that he got a girl pregnant over there. And so they knew about her.
David is now being asked to do more and more missing persons cases. There are different types of missing persons: those who are misplaced, those who don't want to be found, and those who disappear without a trace.
Missing persons is a broad topic. A missing person can be my daughter's gone missing. I'll use an example of a job we've had recently. Clients overseas, their son was over here studying, he just disappeared. He got on a train, went to a country town, got a motel room for a night, hired a push bike, never seen again. Right? Push bike was found 100 kilometres out of town on the side of the road. And that's a true missing persons case. Right? So they're few and far between. But we group missing persons, even finding a debtor is a missing persons job, right? It's a locate. We've got to locate somebody. So the family, reuniting the family is the same. It's just working out who somebody is and then working out where they are now. So if you've got the one just come from the library, we've got a guy who's looking for his biological mother. He's got her full name and her age, not a date of birth, just her age, right? She was 18 when she gave him up. So we have a full name, common surname, so it's not easy. And we've got to try to find her today. And it's hard with women because they go and get married, if not twice, at least once. So the name that he's got is not now what she's known by. So my work in the library today, I went back to historical, it had on the birth certificate that it had her address at the time. So I've gone back to 1966 and found that address, and not her at that address, but people with the same surname. So I've identified what looks like it's probably going to be her parents or grandparents, and she's put down their address at the time. So the next step from there is to go now, move forward, find them or find their family and try to get down to who this guy's mother is. And then once I've worked out who she is, then I can find out where she is. So that's typical of these sort of jobs that I do a lot of... Look, that came because we've always done them, but we did a TV spot for... I can't remember who it was, and that got more and more press, and then more and more TV would come to us and can you do our jobs for that? So it was just a spread from telly, really, and we did a couple in the last few years that made prime time, and so we promote that on our website, and then of course, as you would, plus we get good press on it as well, and the press keeps backing up the press, so it's just people call us for it. The one I mentioned about was in the news at the time, right? The one I was talking about where he got a train to the country, then got a pie. That was in the big news at the time, but it was going back 15 years ago. So they're still looking for it. They still think that he may have engineered his own disappearance, and he's hiding out in plain sight somewhere in Australia, under a different identity. I doubt that, but I mean, that's not mine to say. Mine's to investigate to see what the story is. So we've got started on it where we get to get out in the field and start retracing steps and everything like that, and interviewing people again. Memories fade after 15 years, so that makes it harder. But it was news at the time. Another one I had was a guy, and it was in the news. It wasn't massive news, but it was an interesting case in so much that this guy got remarried. So he had 2 adult kids. He got remarried. The adult kids didn't like the mum, right? And from my memory, the mum didn't like them. And it was just too much for him, all the bickering. So he just got up and left home, just walked out. And they were quite wealthy, well-to-do. And so they were trying to access things. They got into his bank account and saw that he was going to an ATM every 5 days at a North Shore ATM. So I thought, we'll stake out the ATM. He might turn up. He's around. Either that or somebody's got his PIN number and card. But the amount of money he was taking out was like literally $100 once a week. It was like, well, that's not the sort of thing that, a criminal would do. So let's assume it's him. So, of course, when we started, he did not attend that ATM again. So then we started asking around. People have seen him. Oh, yeah, I've seen that guy. I used to buy that Chinese newspaper every Tuesday or whatever it might be. Go, okay. And then, I haven't seen him for like 4 weeks though. It's like, okay, so this is the sort of thing. So you start widening your field, and we ended up down at another area in the same vicinity, but quite a distance, and in the same vicinity of where he lived. And then it was another newsagent. So, oh yeah, and we're showing him photos by this stage. He said, I haven't seen him for about a week though. He normally came in every day to pick up, the Telegraph, and haven't seen him for the last week. So the next thing, talking to the client, and they got a phone call, not while I was there, but shortly after I left, from the police saying they found their father's body. He was actually passed away in a cave in suburban Sydney. He'd been living in the cave on iced Vovos and just died of exposure. And all that's just because he just didn't want to go home. I mean, his home was 3 kilometres away. So, we did everything we could on that one, and we missed by a week.
So is it true there are telltale signs your partner is cheating? Well, David says the client often decides on the signs before seeing him.
This is it. Most clients come to me and they've already made that assessment. Right, so I'm not out there selling people what those signs are. They're more just telling me what they've already observed. Right? Can you get this? I believe he's doing this. But on my website, I've got I've got a list of all of them. It's like 35, and that and not all of them are pertinent, but they can be. A sudden increase in time away due to longer work hours, just a change in the daily routine, distracted and daydreaming. Avoids talking about certain people and changes the subject. I mentioned before the underwear and the grooming. All these are signs that it could get somebody. Sometimes there's no sign.
Is it the case that, particularly in the cheetah's scenario, that they'll make a mistake, and that's when a client will get an inkling that something's wrong, or is it more about their behaviour?
It's probably a bit of each, or it varies from each to each. Certainly someone will make a mistake, like there'll be a hair on, the clothes, like a long red hair on his shirt, where that come from, or a smidge of makeup, that would be considered a mistake. But some people go prying, he keeps his phone very close to quarters, and he's put a new PIN number on it, things like that. So is that a mistake, or is that just being evasive? And these are the sort of things that get people started and wondering, is there something going on? So, yeah, sure, mistakes do happen, and it does get a lot of clients started, yes.
Is there a sort of checklist to try and avoid ending up with a cheater? Can you recommend a few things that people should do before they commit?
Well, we certainly get plenty of people. Let's head to the online investigation. Like, let's say you meet someone online, right? One thing I always say is make sure they're real, right? Some people get involved in everything without even meeting the person. Catfish, the TV show, very much like that can be real, right? So we can normally verify if the person they're talking to is real or not based on the information they've been told, right? We can either prove everything they've said or everything they've said, we can't find anything on that, right? And that would normally be that. So that's the online meeting that way. So that's a very common way to meet nowadays. Others we get a lot from the subcontinent, from India and those areas where their daughter is in Australia living or working and they're on promised marriages still. That stuff sort of happens, and they want to get the potential husband background checked and everything first before they allow it. And sometimes that background check, which is normally database stuff, just confirming what they already been told. They need to know that's all true. But then they'll get some surveillance organised to make sure that he is not off seeing somebody else, because that's a big deal. And it's amazing how often they do have their own lives, because these promised marriages neither party really wants to do it, from my experience. They're off living their own lives, and when they have to do the promising by the parents, they'll step in.
One of David's most dangerous jobs involved cheaters of a different kind. He was engaged to follow a group of organised crime figures. One of their partners just didn't trust them. He knew what he was getting into, but that didn't make it any less hairy or scary.
So it was two different sides getting intel on each other pretty much, and we were there in the middle trying to get set intel, just with surveillance, and it was just a dangerous scenario. Fortunately, my client was very upfront with me in the beginning to say, right, this is the story. So we only had the money to do it properly. So we did 2 to 3 months of it and got the results that he needed, and like all jobs, they finish in a time. So we got away with it. There was a couple of scary moments though. I do remember one of the aims was to get these bad guys, I'll call them bad guys, to a residential address. And they ended up into a hotel / apartment building in the city, and my agent got in the lift with one of them, so to see what floor he got out of and try to ascertain the unit number. And while she's in the lift with him, I just got her a new phone, and this is going back, it's got to be more than a decade now, and this is when the phone still had a click noise when you pushed them for the picture, and she got a sneaky picture of him off in the lift. It was just her and him, and so there was this noise coming out of her phone while it was pointing in his direction, and he pulled her up on it. He said, "Did you just take my photo?" So she had to bluff her way out of that. Fortunately, it was a youngish girl that was on the job instead of a bloke that he might have said something about. So it's just a little fluttering moment like that can be quite scary.
It must have been scary for her too, because was the man in the lift a Biki?
Biki associate, yes. But she was one of those people that get into it because it's that sort of business. It was exciting. So that's why it probably made a lump in her throat, but it didn't make her run out the door and cry and I'm not never working for you again. She got her more interested. So
when they told you that this was you were going to look at Biki associates, how did you feel about that? Were you worried yourself?
I was, but because he was honest with me, and this is what another thing you've got to remember. A lot of clients, they don't tell you the full story, right? So you walk into something not knowing exactly what you're walking into. This guy, fortunately, was quite honest with me. He gave me a hint of a bit of background. I went home and Googled a name or a scenario he gave me, and it brought up these people. It's like, this is what we're dealing with here. This is the high end of town. And he said, well, what's it going to take? And I said, well, we've just got to do it right. You've got to spend some money on this, and we've got to have a number of people on it at a time because the client pays per each operative. So I said, you've got a minimum of 4 people on at a time, 2 teams of 2, partly for their own protection, but partly because of who we're, ultimately, these type of people are looking over their shoulder anyway. So we're not invisible. So it was a matter of doing it right. He said, right, no, I agree with that. And we were able to help him. And there was a couple of times where we'd have 8 people on it, 4 teams, depending on what the scenario was on that day.
Did you ever get busted in that job at any time?
On that job, well, towards the end, we followed a group to a cemetery, right? And they went and had a meeting in the back of the cemetery. Right now, the guys I had on the job, it didn't really faze them. They didn't really put two and two together because they're not from the criminal world. But when I showed the photo of that to the client, he goes, "What's this?" And I said, "Oh, that's where they went. They just went and had a meeting in a cemetery." And because they were dodgy bikies, we figured they just wanted a nice quiet spot. He said, "Oh, no, I think they must be onto us because that's a sign," right? So I think that's when he decided, how much have I spent? And we'll stop there.
What's the graveyard sign? What does that mean?
Well, only from what my client said, he says, well, that's, where you'll end up if you don't leave us alone type thing. But because they were who they were, they probably thought we were the police, right? So that's what they didn't try anything. It was just like, as I said, me or my agents did not pick up that the graveyard thing was anything out of their normal day. But the client certainly picked up that. So he was that was enough for him from that point.
Surveillance doesn't always go smoothly. It can end up like a funny Inspector Clouseau escapade.
We do get busted from time to time. We had another job almost in the same area. We were on this fellow that was cheating on his wife long term. And he'd meet with his girlfriend in a park, sit there and have some prawns on the rocks and everything like that. And then they'd go and make out in the car. And we were on it a lot and just gathering the evidence. And we'd already got quite a bit of evidence. But there's that one time you're sitting there on the rocks and he saw my agent and probably recognised him from a time before. He actually got up and started giving chase. And my agent rings me, panting. He says, He's caught me. He's chasing after me. And he said, "What do I do?" I said, "Well, run," and that's all he could do. This guy was a big guy and he was like 50, whereas my agent was like mid-20s and supposedly fit. And he was scared this big guy was going to catch up to him. He didn't, but, it can happen. We're not invisible. This is what it comes back to. A lot of clients think, oh, you can do this, you can do that. Well, no, we can't. We're still limited by science, really.
Next time on I Spy, meet Keith Shafirius, Australia's longest licensed private investigator. Keith has been dubbed the Retriever for his work recovering kidnapped children from all over the world.